mostly a statement, right? Tell me why are you, so you are a lifelong Democrat.
Yes.
How many times have you voted, would you say? Like how many different presidential
I've
elections?
been forwarded since the 70s.
Okay, so like quite a few, you've seen quite a bit come and go. Let's just put it out there. And yet you've decided to come here today.
Exactly.
Right? You're a lifelong this other thing, and now you've decided to try something different. Wow.
I'm still a lifelong Democrat, but I just think the process of getting those people in place has to change, because those people are not put in place by us, it's put in place by a select group of individuals. And, you know, I mean, I think we all realize that, but there's a lot of people who don't realize that. And I think that's this is our opportunity to educate the mass, the voting public.
Cool, thank you very much. So what's interesting, who feels like they're in the, like an independent or a middle, or, yeah? Let's go with, who hasn't spoken? Let's see. Back there. I don't think we've heard anything from you. What's your name? Andy. So you are you're not a Republican, you're not a Democrat, and why are you here?
So I'm here because I think the two-party system is monopolized. And the structure, whether it's the gerrymandering of congressional cycles or that, but in general, we're not getting moderates and common sense centrists. Because of the party system, the way it's set up, you have extreme right people sort of battling each other right now, who's the most conservative of all. Same thing on the left side, and then it leaves the vast middle unrepresented.
So does it feel underrepresented to you? Like when you think about politics, do you feel like you have a voice or
That's why I'm here at the time, because I want to. So when I saw American Collect, I was okay, this is something where I can get involved and actually change, or help change the system, which I don't think is working. And I don't think forming the two parties works. So,
it doesn't feel that way to you? Like, if you just think about the two parties, it doesn't feel like
I think there is a little mess.
Okay. Cool. What are some other reasons people are here? Yeah.
Well, I'm just genuinely, I haven't voted. I voted in one election because I'm 21, but I'm just really fed up. I mean, I recently did a little bit about how there's always the Republicans and the Democrats, and now I'm just like, I don't even understand how people dealt with it before, and I dealt with it, and been aware. I don't understand it, and I feel that the Republicans and the Democrats are not fixing the problem because they don't want to lose the power that they have, and they're just going to keep prolonging their problems, and they're not really doing anything. They're wasting time.
So, when you guys hear did you guys hear Ariel's story?
Yes.
From over there, or back there? Yeah. So basically, she's saying that she's voted in one other election, and doesn't really see any way forward with. Correct me if I'm summarizing you incorrectly here, but doesn't see any way forward and wants to find another way, like she personally. Now, yeah, correct.
I was just saying, part of the reason I'm here is I've always been told I've always wanted to go into politics. I've always wanted to do something. I've always used people that create something. Crazy. And we make this into a system. Do it. So it's this first person to the opportunity that I can actually get involved with the group that's neutral. And actually go in my dream of politics and go and do it. And be able to go in and not have to claim with the parties.
Yeah, absolutely. Right.
So I live in a district that's vacant for state legislature, and I'll be running on a full transparency, direct democracy platform, and that's why I joined today.
Awesome. So you actually see this as a prospect through which somebody completely unknown could come into the process, right?
Yeah.
So like you haven't been involved in Republican Party leadership or Democratic Party leadership or Independent Party leadership or Green Party leadership. You're totally new.
Yeah.
Cool. So we have, yeah, Bob.
Oh, hi, I'm Bob from Eugene,
Hi.
Oregon. I'm here to explore American Elect as a way of providing the people of our country the power to change the political structure.
Does it feel like people have, for you, does it feel like people have power right now?
No, and it's been that way for a long time. served in the military, and that was one of the things that I became very disillusioned with. That I was, because my intention in serving in the military was to uphold our Constitution that had taken over, and to serve our public, our community, and I discovered very quickly in that service that our government didn't really represent the wishes of the people. So I've been looking for this for a long time.
So can people hear that? Bob said he was in the military and didn't really feel like what he's saying in government is serving the people, and has been looking for this for a long time. Could you argue with Bob's story?
No.
Could you tell Bob that he's wrong about the way that he feels? Right? What about Ariel? She says she's voted in one election, and it feels kind of, if you forgive me for saying so, it kind of feels a little hopeless, right? Like, what good is this going to do? They tell me I'm supposed to participate in this thing, and like, this doesn't feel like the right way. Is that fair? Is that kind of part of your story? Right? Can I tell her she's wrong? No, that's how she feels. Does anybody else feel like Ariel? Does anybody else feel like Bob? Does anybody else feel like Dan? Right?
It's almost taxation without representation version 2.0. I don't like monopolies. And I don't like Microsoft.
Why don't you like
I work there. It's the best place I ever worked, but I don't like the business practices.
So you worked at Microsoft. Yeah. Okay. So you worked at Microsoft, and now you don't like monopolies.
Right. I didn't while I was there. I liked freedom. Somewhere I acquired a passionate desire and belief in democracy and liberty. I don't know where that came from, but I have that passion. And the political parties are monopolistic.
And so what do you see as, what is the opportunity here for America's life?
To establish more democracy, period. To me, that's the goal, not a particular flavor of the candidate, but to facilitate democracy.
So think about that. So Jim started off by saying he doesn't like monopolies. If I start off by saying I don't like money in politics, I'm going to be honest, as soon as you said I don't like monopolies, I'm kind of like, okay, right? As soon as he said, I worked for Microsoft, and now I don't, like, now all of a sudden his story becomes really relevant, right, to the idea that he doesn't like monopolies, right? It wasn't the idea that he doesn't like monopolies that was powerful. It was that he worked in something he thought was a monopoly, and now he's fighting for something he feels like is more just, right? Now he sees a way, perfect or non-perfect, who knows, but he feels like he's seen monopolies in the past in his life. He's worked inside one. And he looks at the Republican and Democratic parties and he goes, that looks like a monopoly to me because I used to be inside it. And now I see a different way that is better, and I'm going to fight for that. Right? That was the story, and that's what we all have. When we say, and I see a bunch of hands, so we're going to get there, I promise. But just kind of to dive into this, right? The inclination for several people as you started to talk about why you're here was to say, well, they are like this and they are like that. What I hope you guys start to see is that the power actually comes from your own experience. If I was going to talk to a bunch of business leaders about why Americans elect is a good idea, who are the best? I mean, like, I sent Jim. That is amazing. Do you think he can organize business leaders in his community?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, who wouldn't listen to that? A lot of people listen to that. Right? Dan says he's a lifelong Republican. Who do you think is a good person to talk to other Republicans about why Americans elect is an interesting idea? Right? I've been doing this my whole life, and now I just don't feel like that's working for me, and I've decided that this is a better way. Join me or don't join me, this is what I'm going to do. Right? That is amazingly compelling. It is their story, it is Dan's story that says, I have gone from this into this, that now I can see in my own experience. There's an idea called universality in detail, right? So it's not just the big picture of what you're talking about. It's not just the things you think are your opinions. It's actually your own experience that other people relate to, right? Has anybody else been part of something, seen something that they didn't like about it, changed their mind, and then done something else? Probably most of us since we're here today. But like that could be anything in your life, right? That could be I didn't like the school I was going to, or I didn't like my job. But that process is something that is represented in Dan's story. Duff's story, right? I've experienced getting favoritism or seeing favoritism through the party process and seeing, the 1% kind of have access to people. And I don't think that's right. And I think anybody should have access to their political leaders, and I'm going to fight for that. Can I argue with Duff about that? No, that's his thing, right? I can say, I don't believe that. And he's like, okay, this is what I believe. You can join me, and if you don't join me, that's okay. But I'm going to offer the opportunity to join me through my story. Ariel, right? 21 years old. Anybody younger than 21 here? Yeah, a couple? How old are you? 16.
No drinks for him.
No drinks for him. It's all trouble. How old are you? 19, right? So will this be your first election to vote in? Okay. So you have somebody who can't even vote yet, and somebody for whom this will be their very first vote. And tell me your story. Why are you here instead of at the Barack Obama campaign rally? Or Republican campaign, for whoever it is going to be.
I think the process of representing, how can you, with two parties, how can two parties represent 300 million people worth of opinions?
It's that simple, right? And then you can argue with them, how can it happen? Well, it can't, right? So think about this. We have somebody who's not even voted yet in a presidential election.
Exactly.
Zach, and why are you here?
Oh, look, for me, I want to be involved in politics, but I've never voted because I'm not at the age of voting yet. But right now they throw two people, and they have what they believe, and they have what they believe. But why should we compromise for what we don't believe? They don't represent us. A select few choose who runs for the Democrats, Republicans. So that's why I believe in this. They represent the people, what we believe, and our beliefs should be able to govern. And that's the whole reason why we have the American Revolution, because a select few people told us what to do, and that's what we have.
Right? I mean, this is someone who has not actually voted in a presidential election before, but already sees the problems that they haven't even participated in yet. Is that a valuable story to share? I will tell other people your story, because it's not only your story is powerful to you and you're going forward, but it's actually powerful to us now, right? So let's just sum this up a little bit. We got a 16-year-old who's never voted in an election before. You have somebody who's seen 70 years worth of elections, right? We've got people who have been lifelong Republicans. You have people who are lifelong Democrats. We have people who have never felt represented by the political system in our country, and they're all in the same room.
All in the same country.
We're in the same country. This is not supposed to happen, folks. This is everything that's not supposed to be possible because of the idea that we are so polarized, right? No, the story of us right now, we've got several individuals. The stories of who we are in this room, our story, the story of us, is that we have everything from one end to the other and everything in between. We are going to change how this works. Do you think the country needs what we have to offer right now? What's going on right now? Right, you guys have all talked about it, but context of 20 years or 50 years or whatever of increasing partisanship, paralyzation. You got money in politics. You got, what else? What else is going on right now? Yeah.
I think Lewis back to we have two bowls of shit, and all we have to do is snip each one and decide which one's going first.
Yeah, sure. Great, good story. That is a great story of now, right? So enter into this problem of right now in this country, we have this thing going on. Some people call it two bowls of shit. Whatever it is, right? There's a problem. We all kind of recognize it, even people who have never voted before. It is so glaringly obvious that a 16-year-old can look at it and go, what? Where can I inject my desire to be involved in politics? That looks crappy. That looks crappy. What else is there? Right? That's where we come in. So think about that story. And think about some of the other questions that have come up today, right? Which is, how do we respond to somebody who says, I think, Tony, you even said, Tanvir, you even said, what if somebody tells me that all you're trying to do is separate the vote to win for Barack Obama, or separate the vote to win for Republican candidate, right? I hear both, which is a great thing. Right? I hear both all the time. Now you could argue and say, no, that's not what they're trying to do. But what if you said, the reason I'm involved in this is because I look at both of those options and I say, that doesn't work for me. And I'm working to make a better way, which I think is part of our responsibility as Americans, and that's just my belief, right? How easy can I respond? I mean, can I tell you you're wrong? No, right? Your story is the best answer to that challenge. And now you've got another story, right? And look, I'll be honest. I don't really think that the other two parties are the best way to go, but also I can tell you that I just met 55 people. I was in California this weekend, I met 55 people, and none of them are in this because they want to see Barack Obama lose or Barack Obama win or Republican candidate win or lose. They're there because they don't see a better way. And I can tell their stories, right? You guys are the power. Your stories are the power here that actually move all of these other things forward. Does that make sense? So it's kind of simple when you actually just break it down that way, right? So I want to hear another story. Tell me sort of why you're here today. Why is Americans Left compelling? Somebody got their hand for a while. Someone back here. Why are you here today? Dan.
Oh, I've already said. Well, I mean, I just think it's a way that we completely upend what's going on right now. And I saw on Facebook.
Do you want to know where you're from?
Corvallis.
From Corvallis, Oregon, right? Corvallis, Oregon. And what do you do for a living? You're a student. Yeah. And so you think this would upend the system? Why would it be upending?
Because it sucks.
Why does it suck for you? Because some people like it. Why does it suck for you?
Well, because in my opinion, nothing of substance gets done. And it's nearly impossible to do like things that were once normal in the past, like Senate confirmations. Those are just, the president, they respect, so the Senate will just, for the most part, confirm because it's the president's opinion, he was selected by the people. Nowadays, it's almost impossible unless you have a 60+ majority in the Senate to even confirm someone because the minority can say they're the opposite.
How old are you?
21.
21. Why do you care about Senate confirmations?
Because, I don't know, it's just something that I think is so glaring wall with the current process.
Okay, so do you see the transition between those two things? So I want to hop on this in a second. But see what happened there. Think about it for yourself, right? Just think about what you just did and listening to that. So he started with kind of starting to go talk about Senate confirmations, and it kind of was less like, it's harder to listen to that opinion. But as soon as he said, this is such a glaring example to me of what is wrong, we can't even pass anything without 60 votes. Right? Once it became about you again, it became a much more powerful statement. So when you sharing the story, right? Your power is not in your opinion. I'm just gonna, as much as I love all of you guys, and I care what you think, I honestly don't care that much about your opinions. I love your opinions. I'm glad you have them. I'm glad you're really smart. I'm glad you have experiences. But what I care about is the experience of how you came to be this way, right? Why you are here now, and what we are experiencing together to move it forward. Right? That is the interesting story that is both the message inherent in there, your medium being able to share it, right? And you, the messenger, being the most important thing. Why are you here?
Well, I think that this is a great process. I think that there is, like I just said, a bigger problem, and that is, we can
are, this is a great time, all like when you're sharing your story, to say I, right? Because as soon as you start saying kind of the story of what's going on around us, like the media can tell me that, right? Or some of the blogger can tell me that, or somebody, but like your power of why you're here right now. Why are you, like, what have you seen? What are your experiences? Why are you here?
Well, I'm here because it needs to change.
Why?
And I'm hopeful that this process can, make a difference in the situation that we have right now.
Why is the situation frustrating to you?
I watched the Republican debates, and I'm like, who has chosen these people? We haven't. Who's picked them?
Yes, all right. Did everybody hear that? Yeah. So Elizabeth was saying that her experience of watching the Republican debate and looking at the TV and going, who has picked these people? Is anybody related to that? Can anybody relate to that? Right? That's your power, right there, right? Your power is not in talking about, like, the issue is that there's a situation and it's wrong, and that I see this as the way. Anybody can relate in the country right now to going, I've been watching this Republican, there's been 28 debates, right? So almost certainly anyone you're going to talk to is going to know about watching a Republican debate. And that moment of going, who the heck picked these guys? Boy and women, right? These people are here because of what exactly? Money, whatever the reason, either way, I don't see how this represents anything. Again, it's all about you in the story, right? Like, how does this, like, clearly you didn't think it represented you, or else you would just pick one of them and say, I'm going to support that guy, or that one, right? If that was the case, that's where she would be, but she's not, she's here, right? That is the part of the story that really matters. So be thinking about what that is for you. I saw another hand back here. Good, there, hand up, yeah.
Yeah, like I was going to even relate that to, you could say like a Republican candidate, and then you could say who has picked Obama this year? No one. People picked him 4 years ago, but you think that would be a good idea to maybe redo that again and see if there's maybe better choices for the Democratic side, but that's not.
So who thinks that?
I do.
You think that, right?
Yeah, I think I would like to see more choices even on both sides.
That's great. And you started by saying, it would be great if you had this, right? But again, I believe, like, this is a time to say, like, what I really want to see, quite honestly, is like another option even on all sides. I don't like any of this stuff when I look at it. And what I found is this other way, and I'd love for you to join me in creating a new opportunity, right? And I think even Duff said, right, he's still a lifelong Democrat, that's fine. You can even tell somebody that, like, I actually still think I'm going to vote. I'll move some lunch, right? Yeah, just so you guys know, lunch is about 10 minutes. But that, again, this is a time to say, like, my personal perspective is this because I have seen this and it's not working for me. That is your personal self-story. And as soon as somebody challenges you and says, well, that's just your opinion, man. Somebody got the reference.
The dude.
Yeah, that's a Big Lebowski thing. Right? As soon as somebody says, you can be like, yeah, it is mine. And I'll tell you, I've been in a room with 55 other people who represent everything from lifelong Democrats to lifelong Republicans to people who have never voted in an election, people who have been in 70 years worth of elections. And quite honestly, it's their perspective too. And we are going to figure this out and make a new way. And we'd love for you to join us. If you don't want to, that's fine. Right? But like that, it's unassailable. Does that make sense to folks? Like when I say unassailable? When it comes to organizing, when it comes time to catalyzing the conversation, giving people the experience, it's all in stories. Go on, sorry, Ariel, if you get it.
Oh, I was just kind of saying about how it's insane how, like, I mean, I've never been like a Democrat or a Republican, but even Republicans and Democrats are like, these people don't even, none of the candidates represent me. Like, I mean, I've heard that from so many people. Like, I'm a Republican, but all the candidates that are up on the podium, I don't identify with them at all. And I just think that's insane. Like, I don't think that's acceptable.
Yeah, right. I mean, and if somebody is a lifelong Republican with you, like you can just say, like, look, I've been a Republican, just like you.
Yeah.
And I look at this and go, why did 150,000 Iowans get to choose who I was going to get that Lindsay, right?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
mean, maybe everybody can or cannot agree that actually the two-party system, you know, there's a lot of merit in the two-party system. It's just not working for somebody right now. And I just want to say that it's always been about the person, actually. It's not about the party. And people have this idea about, this is what I found, is that, oh, well, I don't want a Republican to get it, or I don't want this to get it, or I don't want, and I'm like, it's not about that. This is about something else. This is not about the party. It's about picking a person, not a party. You know, and...
Can I pause you there one second?
Huh?
Can I pause you there for a second?
Yeah.
So how much of Montana's story have you guys heard so far? Like Montana's personal experience about why she's doing this. The last 6 minutes. Anybody tell me anything particularly about her life or why she's here based on what she just said?
Maybe not.
She's been really upset, yeah, like generally. So what I offer is that in describing this, like you're actually entwined in that is that you've got some personal experiences, right? In the frame, you've been talking about other people, like so far. And
Oh, I guess maybe what I'm saying is a little bit out of context, because I was just thinking that it's important to get the communication across to people, that because what I found when I was out there doing this, and I don't know why this brought this up for me, so maybe it's not completely totally relevant in this context, but that there seems to be this war going on. It's like this within the people and the public, there's like this party war, and I feel like there needs to be it's like a different, because what Americans Elected is doing is up together, is a change in paradigm. It's a complete different paradigm.
so I'll ask you this.
Yeah.
Can I articulate what it sounds like to me? I think your story is. What I'm hearing from you. No. I think you're offering a lot.
I feel like this message needs to be communicated to the people.
100% agree. And I hear you offering that. I think it's great. So here's what I think would be an awesome way to structure that. Just as like because a lot of people, we all think this way, right? I agree. Awesome. And so when sharing with other people, there's this, you said a couple fascinating and wonderful things, right? Which are, it just feels to me like there's this war going on, right? I mean, yeah, right? And I've seen where people can come together. I've been in the room where people can come together across every possible ideology. And I know that that's kind of a healing in the way, right? And one of the reasons that I'm joining the Americans Elect is because I see that as a process where people can actually come together.
Actually, I totally believe that. I really believe that it doesn't have to be like that at all, that we're all really in this together.
And I believe that you believe that. Strongly. And when you share it from your own story, right, it gives it that punch where I now go, yeah, I feel that too. Right?
So you're suggesting that just to make it as personal as possible.
Yes.
What I said probably, like how I can say it better by...
So I guess I'm offering to you guys, again, is not that what you think and what you're seeing doesn't matter. I'm saying it will be way more powerful when you say it completely through the lens of what you've been feeling and seeing. Right? So as soon as you said, it feels to me, I think you said you've seen you've seen quite a few things, and it never felt quite right. I've always had this deep sense that what I was experiencing was not quite right. And then when I saw this new way, it's like a light went off. Does anybody else relate to that? Right? Yeah. So again, it's all about your personal experience that people can relate to, that is your deepest strength in terms of communicating and getting other people involved. Does that make sense? I mean, I'm often not sure that I'm articulating things well, but yeah, Dave, or John, sorry.
Could you just make a distinction between our own opinions and then our own personal experience?
Sure. So if I say, let's use Jim. Jim, what do we do? But if I say monopolies are bad for the economy, right? That is totally an opinion of mine. I've never worked in a big corporation. I've never worked in the SEC to corporate trust busting or whatever. I've never worked in a union. I have no real experience that to me says monopolies are bad, except it kind of in theory looks like a bad thing. As soon as I transition from my opinion of monopolies are bad to the reason monopolies feel wrong to me is because I remember when I worked at Microsoft, it seemed like we weren't allowing any other good ideas into the fray. And it seems to me today like the Republican and Democratic parties are doing the same thing that I used to see at Microsoft. And I just feel like that's wrong, and it's not allowing for the best new ideas to come forward and solve problems, right? Jim can say that. Like that's